Hadi, we gotta get more pictures.
Your mom would not give you your shirt. Have you ever seen him do the side triceps pose?
I don't recall.
Doesn't look right.
This was fucked up.
I'm not a victim. They ain't gonna break me.
But I don't care.
Bodybuilding hasn't always been a fair sport. Behind those shimmering stage lights lies a history marred by controversies, outright robberies, athletes who poured their heart, soul, and countless hours into sculpting their bodies, sometimes found themselves victims of a system that didn't always reflect the true merit of their hard work. In today's video, we're counting down the top 10 robberies in bodybuilding history. This is a tribute to the athlete who deserved better, a deeper look into bodybuilding darker moments. Number 1. 2001 Mr. Olympia, Ronnie Coleman vs. Jay Cutler. Ronnie Coleman was holding the title for 3 consecutive years. He was a dominant force, but in 2001 he faced an unexpected challenger, Jay Cutler, a relative newcomer to the Mr. Olympia stage.
And there he is out of Aliso Viejo. 1 year ago, Jay Cutler was in 8th place.
Ronnie Coleman's physique was so soft. He had a big bubble gut. He was lacking the aesthetic. And also Coleman suffered from a serious bicep tear just weeks before the competition. Critics pointed out difficulties in his posing routine, especially in maintaining certain poses. In comparison to Jay Cutler, Jay had a tight and a well-defined conditioning. His aesthetics were on another level. Cutler brought a balanced, symmetrical physique that showcased every muscle group flawlessly.
Jay is harder, he is more cut and more separated than Ronnie Coleman.
From his well-defined triceps to his perfectly shaped shoulders, Cutler's physique was a work of art. Jay didn't just lose, he faced the disqualification for the next year, and they removed the $60,000 prize money from his pocket because he failed a drug test, even though all the world knows that this is not a natural sport. Number 2. The 1972 Mr. Olympia, Arnold vs. Sergio Oliva. After beating Sergio Oliva and winning his first ever Olympia, everybody was waiting for a rematch between the two, and it only happened again in the 1972. Arnold wasn't in his best shape at all. He didn't bring the best conditioning, while Sergio came in full and thick. His natural body structure, including a small waist and massive legs, is considered by some as a genetic advantage that makes his physique more aesthetically pleasing. His muscle definition and overall conditioning were better than Arnold's. Critics argue that Arnold's conditioning in 1972 was not at its best. In the front double biceps pose, he used this technique by tilting his waistline to create a shadow, so he minimized his weaknesses. This might be seen as an attempt to manipulate the judges rather than showcasing his physique genuinely. This was a blood victory for Sergio in my opinion. Sergio Oliva believed until the day he died that year's Olympia was rigged in favor of Arnold Schwarzenegger winning that competition, so he can be the face and the rising star of bodybuilding.
Funny story about that. There was a judge, I forget the guy's name, Dennis something, but anyway, he was a judge at that contest. And Arnold was doing, it was a prejudging, and Arnold was doing not the compulsory poses, he was doing whatever he wanted. And the judge said to him, he warned him several times, then he said to Arnold, he says, Arnold, get off the stage, you're disqualified. Nobody listened. That night they sent that judge home. He was through, but Arnold prevailed, and he ended up winning.
Number 3. Mr. Olympia 2007, Jay Cutler vs. Victor Martinez. 27 Olympia was one of the most controversial decisions in bodybuilding history. Jay Cutler defended his title and secured his second Mr. Olympia win, but many believe it should have been gone to Victor Martinez. Jay was aiming for size. He came in at 259 pounds, but critics argue that he looked flat compared to Victor, who at 250 pounds brought exceptional conditioning and fullness. Victor Martinez brought his best shape ever in terms of conditioning, size, and just sheer proportions, especially that he had momentum from winning the 2007 Arnold Classic and was coming off a 3rd place finish in the 2006 Olympia. Jay faced issues. He was looking blocky, with a very large waist and a weak front double bicep pose, especially when standing next to Victor. It really brought out some of Jay's flaws, including the lack of separation. It was a tough year for him, and those problems persisted into 2008, where he lost to Dexter Jackson. Despite Jay's issues, he clinched the 2007 Olympia win by just 2 points, with a final score of 6-9 for Victor.
Jay Cutler! Jay Cutler!
The decision sparked controversy. The fans and the industry bodybuilders, including Ronnie Coleman, Dave Columbu, and Flex Wheeler, thought Victor deserved the win that year.
I told Jay many times, you didn't win that show. I went as far as to tell him, your mom would not give you your show. There's no way for me that Jay should have placed ahead of Victor or Dennis Wolf or Dexter.
Number 4. The 1980 Mr. Olympia, Arnold versus Mike Mentzer and Frank Zane. This was one of the most dramatic Mr. Olympia ever. Arnold Schwarzenegger made a surprise comeback to the bodybuilding stage, and he claimed that he trained just for 8 weeks leading up to the 1980 Mr. Olympia. With Frank Zane suffering a freak injury, it seemed like the path was clear for Mentzer to snatch the title, since he won the heavyweight category the year before and was the only bodybuilder in history to have a perfect score. When the competition day arrived, Arnold came in looking impressive, but strategically approached the posing. Whenever they called for poses he wasn't strong in, like the side tricep pose, he conventionally acted like he didn't hear.
Have you ever seen him do the side triceps pose?
I don't recall.
For a reason.
One of the most memorable moments was when Arnold hit the abs and thighs pose. It was reportedly his weakest shot of the entire show, but the judges were his friends, the top guys, all on his side. And backstage, Arnold's behaviors raised eyebrows, and Mentzer claimed that Arnold was on cocaine that day.
They let him run wild. He was wild. Joe Weider told me later that Arnold was on cocaine that day.
When the results were announced, Arnold took first place, followed by Chris Dickerson in second, and Frank Zane in third. Boyarko and Mike Mentzer shared the fourth place. The reaction were intense, with Frank Zane throwing his trophy against the wall, and Mike Mentzer, just 28 years old, was so upset that he retired from bodybuilding ever since that night.
He got upset and carried this bitterness and carried this anger with him everywhere he went. And I think that's one of the reasons that caused him to die.
Also, the 1980 Mr. Olympia, which was supposed to be broadcasted on CBS, was ultimately shelved due to the controversial decision. And some people say that Arnold allegedly deleted some footages from that very Olympia.
Not a lot of video around because I think Arnold brought it all up.
One last twist, guys. The grand prize for the first place was $25,000, but there is no recorded prize money for other placings. So it means if you didn't win, you went home empty-handed.
And I have to be very honest that this was the highest level of competition I've ever faced in any competition in my life.
We have a full video talking about this Olympia only. Go check it out, guys. Number 5. The 1981 Mr. Olympia. Franco Columbu versus Tom Platz and Danny Padilla. After Arnold's comeback and his controversial win in the 1980, the APB faced another debacle in the 1981. In fact, this contest would prove to be even worse. This time, Franco Columbu took the title. It was so bad that I would not hesitate to say that the 1981 was the worst outcome in the Mr. Olympia history. Franco wasn't at his best. He had gynecomastia and zero separation in his thighs. Those legs considered to be the worst legs in history for a Mr. Olympia winner. In comparison with top contenders like Danny Padilla, Tom Platz, and Roy Callender, all of them displayed superior symmetry and conditioning. Tom Platz had an amazing shape. He was way far better than Franco, but my personal favorite was Danny Padilla. Padilla, well small of structure at only around 5'2", was shredded to the bone and had the perfect shape and proportions. His muscle bellies were uniformly long and full, the sweeping bulk of his triceps and the pleasing roundness of his shoulders. Add to that his tight waistline and a nice set of pecs. I think it's fair to say Danny deserved the win, or at least Tom Platz. But notably, there was an Italian judge who gave Franco a perfect score. Tom Platz placed third and Danny Padilla placed fifth. Can you imagine that? Despite audience dissatisfaction, Franco was crowned the winner, leading to a chaotic atmosphere. Number 6. The 1997 Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates versus Nasser Sonbaty. One of the clearest robberies that ever happened in the history of bodybuilding. It wasn't even close between second and first place. Nasser Sonbaty was clearly much better than Dorian, who was facing a serious arm injuries, a bicep tear and also a tricep tear, and many argued that it was unfair for him to be allowed to compete in the first place. His physique was extremely unbalanced. His waist was large, his structure and symmetry was off, the proportions were gone. He wasn't the same Dorian we knew. It was also his last Olympia win. But then along comes Nasser, who delivered a complete package, a crazy conditioning, crazy muscle roundness, a really good taper waist, and with all those freaking muscles, he was a true mass monster. He was an outstanding in almost every single aspect.
Nasser looks good, but Dorian beats him from the back. The answer is, didn't I beat him from the front and from the side and from the other side? Besides that, from the back you see also the shoulders and the legs.
Nasser was shocked when Dorian declared the winner, and you can see that from his reaction.
I went back to the hotel room. Actually, guys, again, to tell you the truth, I was actually crying because on stage I didn't want to cry because I felt completely robbed. But then I thought maybe I will win next year. But next year I didn't win either.
Nasser should have won this Olympia. There was no clear-cut, controversial decision in bodybuilding than the 1980 Mr. Olympia. Even though some could see Dorian's victory as a testament for his unwavering dedication, that even in the face of all those injuries and setbacks, he was still able to compete at the end of the day. But I see it more as a sign of the incompetency and the possible corruption of the EFBB judging system. Number 7. The 2014 Mr. Olympia. Heath versus Greene. Heath versus Greene was the most famous battle in the modern bodybuilding. However, in my opinion, Greene should have won the 2014 Mr. Olympia. Greene brought a unique mix of massive muscles and artistic flair to the stage, especially showing off his killer lower back and huge legs. It wasn't just about strength, it was like watching a sculptor come to life, and the fans loved him because he represents the perfect combo of power and beauty in bodybuilding. And at this year, he brought an exceptional lower lats and an impressive legs development, detail and sharpness, especially in his lower body. Don't get me wrong here, it was a very close decision. But the reason for me to not give the win to Phil, it's his midsection. The bubble gut wasn't really a thing in 2014. But if this happened now, it would be a shame to give it to Phil Heath. And remember, just after this show, Arnold talked about this topic.
So it's all of this, kind of stomach sticking out and all of this kind of, it doesn't look right anymore.
And ever since that night, Greene stopped competing for bodybuilding.
You don't get this far. You don't get to this point and just stop. It doesn't happen like that. I'm not a victim. They ain't gonna break me. And I don't want to speak negatively to anybody. I don't want to speak negatively about anything else. Let me just say that there's more going on than I'm able to say.
Number 8. The 1994 Mr. Olympia. Dorian Yates versus Shawn Ray.
In second place, competitor number 7, Shawn Ray.
During the 1994 Mr. Olympia, Dorian had certain flaws in his physique, such as a torn biceps, bloated waist, and less than ideal separation in certain muscle groups. Those imperfections opened the door for the best version of Shawn Ray to come. His exceptional symmetry, his proportion, and overall flow were considered one of the best aesthetic physique in history, and particularly at this night. Shawn was superior than Dorian Yates. He had a complete physique in terms of size, conditioning, detail, and posing. While Dorian Yates was undeniably massive, he lacked the balance between size and aesthetic, and the torn biceps affected his proportions. If the judges leaned more toward aesthetics, symmetry, and overall completeness, Shawn Ray could be seen as the more deserving winner. As for me, the judges messed up this time. Dorian wasn't at his best, and Shawn should have won. Number 9. 2019 Mr. Olympia. Brandon Curry versus Hadi Choopan. Well, many of you might think that Hadi Choopan should have won the 2023 Mr. Olympia against Derek Lunsford, but I'm not gonna talk about it because it wasn't really clear.
Hadi, we gotta get more pictures.
This one was clear. The 2019 Mr. Olympia. Brandon Curry won this one. But for me and for a lot of experts in bodybuilding, they all agree that this was a clear win for the person involved, since none of the biggest threats to the Mr. Olympia title weren't presented at this year's Olympia. Hadi Choopan showed up at his first Mr. Olympia appearance. His physique showcased deep muscle definition, particularly in the abdominal area. The level of details and separation was crazy, contributing growing to a more aesthetically pleasing presentation. He had a better structural flow, a crazy conditioning and dryness, and a well-shaped V-taper and overall balanced physique. He was much better than Brandon Curry and clearly better than William Bonnet. Brandon Curry wasn't that good. He lacked details in the lower back, hamstring, and glutes. His smaller legs were his biggest weaknesses, additionally to the smoothness in his triceps. This should have been the first Mr. Olympia for the Iranian bodybuilder. Number 10, 2017 Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath versus Big Ramy. This was the last event that Phil Heath proved his dominance in the Mr. Olympia stage.
The 7-time Mr. Olympia, Phil the Gift.
However, a lot of people claim that he should have lost this one to Big Ramy. In addition of the ugly bubble gut, Phil Heath showed a protruded belly button, described as a hernia, and such a visible imperfection should have been considered in the judging, even though he displayed thickness and depth in back shot as always. Big Ramy presented bigger sides and better symmetry and proportions.
When our head judge moved Big Ramy in the middle, the fans got excited.
He was obviously better in multiple poses, such as front lat spread, front double biceps, side chest, side triceps, abs and thighs, and the most muscular. Big Ramy deserved this one.
But I don't care.
And that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you like it. If you did, make sure you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and see you next time. Peace.